Vim, or more specifically Vim Motions, is a way for developers to improve their productivity. How most people use computers is they have a mouse and they have a keyboard and they switch between the mouse and the keyboard to perform their tasks. What Vim Motions provides is a way to only use the keyboard and to not use the mouse. And so the theory behind this is that if you do not have to switch between the keyboard and the mouse, your productivity will be improved. At least that's the basic concept. I'm oversimplifying a bit. This is day 2 of my journey of learning how to use Vim Motions. Because as a software developer myself, I'm interested in improving my productivity and seeing if Vim Motions lives up to the hype and if it improves my processes, things like that. Unfortunately, I only had the idea to document my progress on day 2. I missed out on day 1. It's day 2 now, so I'll have to think of some ways. Maybe there's a way of going back to day 1 to document it. I'm not entirely sure. That gets into things like grandfather paradox, things like that. I'll have to do some research to figure out if there's a way to document day 1. But I know I can document day 2 because it's still day 2. I want to bring in an image here. Vim, just so that everyone knows what I am talking about. I'm a visual person, so it helps to have visual references while I'm talking about things. And one of the things you may have noticed is that it took me a while to copy this image into Microsoft Paint. I want a better way of bringing in images to Microsoft Paint so that it helps me when talking about Vim Motions and anything else that I'm talking about related to like developer workflows or things of that nature. One of the questions you may have is why are you using Microsoft Paint in the first place? Is there a better tool out there for talking about developer related um, issues, developer related workflows? And the answer to that is no. I did a good amount of research. I looked at the available tools. It seems like Microsoft Paint is the leader when it comes to presenting information, especially in the developer world. It seems to be a top pick. There's not a whole lot of competition, and Microsoft Paint seems to be the best suited out of all of the options. There's not even a whole lot of other options aside from Microsoft Paint, surprisingly enough. So it's one of those things where you don't really think about it until you actually have to do something like this, and then you realize that Microsoft Paint is pretty much the only option. So back to the problem at hand, how do we bring in these images faster? Since I'm on Windows, there's a tool called Auto Hotkey Dash. This allows me to write scripts to automate tasks that I would normally have to do manually. So this is the first time I installed this thing today and wrote some scripts with it to help with this process basically. This is the first script that I wrote. I used a open source library called ImagePut that allows me to do image operations. I provide the image path and I use image put keyboard to put the image into the clipboard for pasting. I then make sure that Microsoft Paint is active and then paste the image into Microsoft Paint. So I can go ahead, activate this script, and then if I do Control Alt V, which is declared up here, it should paste this image into Microsoft Paint. So I will do Control Alt V, and now Vim has made its way into Microsoft Paint. Now I can do things like talk about Vim and talk about Vim some more, and even talk about Vim some more. And this allows for things to be perfectly clear when it comes to which Vim I am talking about. It's just a helpful visual aid. But this isn't enough because that script only accounts for one image. So I went back and I wrote a different version of the script. It's mostly the same, except instead of taking in a file path, it takes in a directory. And then it loops through all of the images in that directory. And one of the things that I was trying to figure out was how to sort all the files alphabetically. It turns out it is possible, but it's not built into the scripting framework. So you have to write a bunch of custom code or borrow a bunch of custom code to handle that. So there's this user created a whole bunch of code to handle sorting. And I didn't want to have to deal with pulling in all of this code, even though someone else had already done the work of writing it. I came up with a different solution for solving this problem, which was making sure all the images are already sorted alphabetically by naming them like A, B, C, D, etc. So they're already sorted by the operating system and by the file system before they make it into my script. And that seems to work pretty good. And another thing that this script does is it has an incrementer. So every time I do Control Alt P, it will paste the next image in the sequence. And that allows for me to basically tell a story with the images as I'm discussing a topic, discussing Vim motions and my progress there, things like that. Another thing while I was developing this script that I ran into, I used the wrong API. Instead of image put clipboard, I used, going back into my history, I used image put file. The difference between the two is that one of them puts the image in the clipboard and the other one uh, copies the image into the file system. So pretty silly of me to make this mistake, but I will show you what it did just because I thought it was interesting. I need to basically reload the script so it takes in my new changes, and I will do Control Alt V. You will see the part that makes the window active works, but a new Vim image is not pasted. I can go back to my script and you can see that the image was pasted as a file instead of into the clipboard. So I am going to undo that change, put it back to the way it was, and refresh the script so that it should work the way it's supposed to. And I'll start up the script here. So now everything is set to continue onwards. We can finally talk about Vim. Now that we have written the script to save all of this time. Unfortunately, there's some additional functionality that I need to create for these recordings and for these essentially documentation of my progress. And that is some way to display the text I am inputting onto the screen so that it can be easily visible. And the reason for that is that Vim has two different modes. It has insert mode, where you insert text. And as you can see, when you're in insert mode, there's not a whole lot of value of showing what keys that are being pressed because it's already accounted for by what you see when I type stuff out. However, Vim has another mode to it, which is normal mode, and that is used for navigation as well as a few other different things. And with navigation mode, you don't get to see what text I am inserting while I am doing my operations, and more importantly, I won't be able to see that if I go and rewatch the video. I want to be able to see that. So this has been solved by many other people before I even came along, since Vim is a popular tool, and this is something that's really helpful for educational purposes and things like that. So one of those tools is called input overlay, this guy right here. And there's different UI integrations with input overlay that show you what keys were pressed. So one of them has history, and one of them is a keyboard that shows the live view. And I think both of these will be helpful for showing what keys that I'm pressing while I'm learning Vim. So I will show you both of these and how I set them up. Initially, I set it up with the default configuration. So I've enabled it. I will type some characters. Testing, testing. And you can see a whole bunch of characters just fly onto the screen. And with this default configuration, it goes off of the page. There's a whole lot. It takes up a large portion of the page as well. So I made some modifications to the configuration to make it fit my needs a bit better. And so I've enabled that one. I'll type out some more characters. You can see it's taking up a lot less of the screen, but you're also getting less history. And one of my concerns is I want to be able to see a large amount of history so that I don't have to go and rewind the video in order to see what was previously inserted. And that's one of my concerns. And of course, I could have expanded the history like earlier, but then it would have taken up a lot more of the page. So my thought is I need some way to get this to work horizontally instead of vertically, because I think that will be the way to conserve space. There is also a keyboard overlay, which I'm pretty happy with this, how it's set up the way it is. So I can just type and I can see keyboard inputs. I think this works great. I think I'm going to keep this one how it is, but I need some way of showing the history. I don't think the existing way I have here is going to work too well. So I'll disable that one. And I believe I have some images to go along with this. Yep, I need a new way. This way is not going to work for me. So I had to do some more research. Unfortunately, GitHub Copilot, I ran out of my messages quota. My initial thought was rewriting the existing script to work horizontally instead of vertically, but I realized that that would be too much effort. And even if I had Copilot do it, there's an old saying, don't reinvent the wheel and don't let GitHub Copilot reinvent the wheel for you. So I figured since Vim is so popular that there must be an already existing solution out there for this history to be shown in a better way. So I did some research and I found this, fastest Vimmer. And in that video, you can see that the Primeagen here is using an interface right here that has a very large history and does not take up a whole lot of space. This is exactly what I'm looking for. The only problem is I have no idea where he got this. It's possible that he made it himself. It's possible that he found it somewhere. It's a big it's a big mystery where this came from. Nobody knows where it came from. I have not been able to find where it came from. It's possible that in one of his other videos or somewhere else he talks about how he came up with this or how he set this up, but I was not able to find anything, and I did not want to waste a whole lot of time doing the research and trying to find a record of it. What I did find while I was looking is that the music he used is $7.49 for per month in order to use the music they used in the video. Not really relevant, but since I found it, I mean, I figured I might as well share it. So, back to the hunt. I found a new library. It does not seem to be the same one that the Prime Engine used, but as you can see on the bottom left, it has that horizontal functionality that I'm looking for. It doesn't quite have as much history as I would like, but it should be an adequate amount of history for my needs, especially since I'm starting out. I won't be typing very fast with this. So it should cover my needs. So I set this guy up and this is what it looks like with the final implementation. I'll pull up my typing, type, 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 type. And as you can see, it's filling in the bottom and you can still see the text filling up in the top. And this will give a way for myself and for anyone watching the video to view the Vim motions that I am inputting as like a learning tool and to see how I am progressing over time, just as a way of documenting it. So I've spent all this time now setting up basically everything I need for presenting my progress on Vim Motions. Unfortunately, I've ran out of time to make more progress today on Vim Motions because most of my time today was spent setting all of this up and then recording all of this, doing multiple takes. I think this will be the final take I do, hopefully. And tomorrow I will spend time working on the Vim motions and starting to actually make some progress on that front. And hopefully I'll be able to find a way to document day one as well. I might do day one and day three at the same time, or I might just be forever a day behind. And maybe that will give me some breathing room in case I miss a day. Then I'll be 2 days behind. I don't think I've really thought this through yet. So I'll figure that out and I'll see where we are tomorrow on this. I look forward to starting the spin motions now that everything has finally been set up.